So let's talk about laying out the rudder. Our first step is to get a piece of blank paper. It has to be 48 inches wide, maybe more like 50, because we're going to use up 48 inches for one of the sides of the rudder, and then just another 20 or 30 inches in the other direction. Now, our goal is to transfer what is on our plans to full size. So let's talk about transferring what we have here to here. Now, the easiest way I found was like we did with the rudder fin, and that is locating a minimum number of points as reference points, and then the rest can be drawn very easily after that. So looking at our plans, we notice that going across the top, the backbone of the rudder, is a 48-inch tube. We're using all 1-inch tube here. So at the top, I picked 2 points, just put them anywhere, first point on one side, and then measured 48 inches out and marked the other point. So our first 2 points are simply 48 inches apart with a straight line between them. And those 2 points represent the bottom of the 48-inch tube that goes across here. So this is the very bottom outside of the tube corner, and this is the very bottom corner outside end of the other end of the tube. So that's very easy. Now let's look at creating our third point. And looking at our plans, I'm sure you have your plans in front of you, we'll notice that the point down here is somewhere along a line that is, don't tell me, 2 7/8 inches in. In other words, if I were to use my square from our very first point, and let me center this, this might be a little easier to see. So here's our upper left point, and using a square, we're going to come down and make a small line that is 2 7/8 inches over. So our 2 7/8 inches, and this is marked on your plans. And then along that line, we want to find where 17 1/4 inches is, where it intersects that line. And that's the line I've drawn here. So our third point is the 2 1/4 inches in, and 2 7/8 inches in, check your plans, and then to that line we find a point that is our 17 1/4. And so that's point number 3. Point number 4 is going to be in a similar fashion over here. We're going to use our square to come 90 degrees down and find a point that is, and looking at your plans, so going down 10 1/2 inches straight down, and then coming in 1 5/8. And of course, those dimensions are on your plans. I'm just showing you which direction you go down and which direction you go in. And that creates your third point. Now, let's connect. We're not going to draw a straight line between point 3 and point 4 over here. We have to do something a little bit different, because these 2 last points we drew are going to be the beginning of a radius. Let's take a look. Now we're going to continue with the line coming down. We'll zoom up a little bit, and we need to continue with our turn. Now this is the outside of the tube, and we need to make a turn headed this way. Now the way we're going to do that is actually very easy. The plans call for a 3-inch radius turn, and we're going to draw a 3-inch curve, even though we may not bend one of those. I'm going to use my square and draw a perpendicular line like this, for the reason of using a compass with a lead in one side and a point in the other. I have this set to 3 inches between the 2 points. And what I'm going to do is place it on the line that I just drew, and the lead goes on the very last point we drew, and I'm going to draw a arc. So basically this arc is a 3-inch radius curve, with being tangent right at the point that we stopped going straight, and we're going to curve. Now we're going to do the same thing at the other end, because the plans at the other end call for a 3-inch radius curve. So let's move over there. Now we're at the other side, and we're going to follow the other line down until we reach the point that we previously drew, which was right here. And same thing, I'm going to draw a perpendicular line and I'm going to place my 3-inch compass on that line and the lead at the point, and draw an arc, and this is a 3-inch radius curve. And what we're going to do, if you can see that arc there, is connect. This again is the outside of our tube that's going to turn, and then it's going to head towards the other arc that we drew. Let's take a look at that. Now this may be hard to see right now, I'll zoom in a moment, but basically we're going to connect the tangent of this curve with a straight line to the tangent of the curve over here. And again, this is going to be the outside of our tube along the other edge. And I'm just using a piece of angle. Maybe it's easier to see this way. And now I can go ahead and fill in the 1-inch wall of the inner wall of the tube all the way around. And here is the full-size layout for the rudder. We have our 3-inch radius curves at each end. So our first step is going to be to modify these curves, these bends, because this is all going to be one piece here, and then this tube will be a second piece. We want to modify these to take advantage of the 8-inch radius from our electrical bender. I'm going to change this one and going to change this one. So let's look at how we're going to make these less sharp so that we can bend them. Now, it's important that we create a new pizza bottom, circular piece of cardboard, this time with an 8-inch radius, meaning it'll be 8 inches from the center to the edge. And you can do this simply by taking a pencil, a string, tying the string on, measuring it, and drawing on a cardboard box, and carefully cutting it out. So 8 inches from the middle to the edge. I got a little fancy and I wanted a 7-inch radius also. You'll see why in a moment. And I made that out of the same cardstock by cutting it away. But if you have 2 of these, one for 8-inch and one for 7-inch radius, this will work very nice. The reason we want to make this is this models the bend of our conduit, our the radius that we get from our electrical conduit bender much better than the one for the pizza. So we're getting better every time we make something new here. And the reason this is going to be more useful is we're going to first modify the bend in our rudder. Now this is 3 inches as we created earlier using our 3-inch compass. Made that. So this, we want to convert a 3-inch radius to an 8-inch. The 8-inch is very close to the outside radius of what our conduit bender makes. So what we're going to do is place it so that it is tangent or just touches each side equal amounts from the distance. So it just touches. And that is going to become our new curve. This will be the outside wall of our new curve. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this. And we're going to be able to see what our new curve looks like. And there it is. Now, obviously this is the outside of the tube. If we draw the inside, and that's why I have this 7-inch radius. This is 1 inch less because we're dealing with a 1-inch tube. And from a similar standpoint, it would look something like this. So this is the curve that we'll get when we end up bending our tubing. We're going to go do this at the other end of the rudder bend. So yes, we have softened up the curve as opposed to the ones in the plans. This is much less stressful on the aluminum tubing. A 3-inch radius is quite a turn for this type of aluminum tubing. I will sleep much better with one that looks like this. Just a lot less stress that's not work hardened into the metal from over bending. That's my opinion, and this is going to be my bend. So let's go down to the other end and do the same thing. And here's the other bend. It's almost 90 degrees there. And we're going to put our 8-inch radius curve here and get the tangent point from this side and this side lined up. And then we will make our new curve here. This would be a very tight curve for this aluminum tube. And then our 7-inch side. So this will be closer to the path our tubing will take when we end up bending it. It does give the rudder a new appearance, but certainly this will be more ideal for what we're doing. And as we bend, we will try and follow this trace, because that's the size our conduit bender makes. Pretty simple. So here is the full-size template for the rudder. I have drawn it out from the plans. You will notice at the corners that we have 2 curve radiuses. This is the original 3-inch, same with over here, very sharp. And then you know the wider 8-inch. Here's the wider 8-inch radius curve, which is more appropriate for our conduit bender, which makes the wider curves. So I will be using these curves. So we have one piece that starts here, comes around, so it has 2 bends, and then just a single straight piece 48 inches long. We're going to start with the straight piece because we have a set of hinges that need to be placed on it, and as we learned before, it's much easier to deal with hinges before it's attached to the other part of the rudder.